It's that time of the year where you're looking at your fantasy rankings going, which players am I proceeding with caution? I'm not sure if I want to take them or not. In today's video, I'm breaking down the players who I'm proceeding with the most caution and whether I'm going to be drafting them or not. But as always, make sure you leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Hit that little bell notification, get notified to all my videos here, and make sure you share this with everyone you know. But let's jump right into it. Now in this video, there are going to be guys that I'm talking about that, some people are really high on, but I just don't see it, whether it's injury, talent around them, or just not really feeling it this year. But each player will get a final grade at the end of their review. Starting off with Dak Prescott. Main reason, injury concerns. To start Dak's career, he seemed to be pretty reliable, but over the last couple years, he's gotten a lot of injuries that have been stacking up, making him miss some games. For the first time in a long time, he actually does have a 1-2 solid punch in both CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. And yeah, that should alleviate some pressure, being able to have him get the ball out quicker by having two stud wide receivers. But his health is way too scary for me to take that gamble, especially with where he is going. The problem with Dak, however, it's a hamstring injury that tore off the bone last season, and that's brutal. Especially, he's getting older. His body is not able to take those same hits. Where he's going anywhere between the, 9th and 10th round, his average draft position, which isn't terrible, but it's not great with his history. If he were to fall, down to the 12th, 13th round, yeah, I may be willing to take a gamble on him as a backup quarterback possibly. But I'd rather get somebody who's a lot more secure in their situation and doesn't have the injury risk like Dak Prescott does. Somebody more like Jared Goff, who's going in the 10th or 11th round. He's got a very similar situation. He's got stud wide receivers, he's got a better offensive line, and he doesn't have the injury baggage. So I would rather go with somebody more like Goff over Prescott. Decision, avoiding Dak Prescott unless he falls a couple rounds. Next up, Rasheed Rice. Reason, suspension. Rasheed Rice is in trouble for a racing incident that happened in Dallas where he was involved and fled the scene. The problem with this is that he's eligible the first 4 games of the season. They are not going to hear his disciplinary hearing until September 30th. And while yes, this is following the statute and bylaws, everything like that, it is doing exactly what is in the CBA. It's not a good look for the NFL yet again. You have two players in completely different situations, I agree, where Jordan Addison was a wet reckless, which is basically driving while intoxicated. Rashee was literally speeding and causing bodily harm to people. Both completely different situations, and yes, both handled very differently in the collective bargaining agreement. However, the reason that this is a problem is this happened last year. It's not like it happened in July of this year and they're like, we're waiting until September 30th. Then it's like, okay, I get it. You're getting your ducks in a row. You've had over a year for this. Why is this taking so long? This should have been decided weeks ago what Rasheed's punishment is going to be. But why are you waiting to this point? And this only fuels the favoritism of the Chiefs. Again, I think they get calls, but this is getting ridiculous. So yeah, while being able to play those 4 games does look like a little favoritism, their whole schedule is going to have some of those hard games scattered out that he could be missing. My problem with Rashee, though, is even if you get him those first 4 games, those are tough games he's going to be playing in. We don't know what the Chiefs are doing yet on offense, so we don't know what him and Mahomes are going to look like. So you're kind of taking a gamble for 4 weeks, building up chemistry, and then possibly missing 6 weeks. Then he's going to have to ramp back up towards the end of the season. You're kind of hoping maybe he's that playoff push player for you. I don't know if I want to have a bench spot occupied for that long. And unless your league has something like a suspension bench spot, which I don't see actually happening, he's just going to take up a roster spot at that point. Not to mention, he's coming back from a devastating knee injury like that. That hurts just to watch. With him being eligible for the first 4 games and his suspension projected to be anywhere 2 to 6 games, I don't know if I want to pay that premium to get somebody like Rasheed Rice. I just don't think it's worth it. The juice isn't worth the squeeze right there. Conclusion, avoiding. Next up, we have Christian McCaffrey. The reasons, injury concerns, and the talent around him. The 49ers have the easiest schedule this year, and this should make Christian McCaffrey's value much better than it is. But the problem is the team around them is not great. Debo is gone. Ayuk is hurt. Juwan Jennings is hurt. This is leaving Ricky Pearsall as wide receiver 1. They are going to rely a lot on Christian McCaffrey, and I think defenses are going to know this. And I don't see the situation getting much better because if you look at San Francisco's history when it comes to injuries, they tried to downplay McCaffrey's injury last year. And look how bad it was. I could see them doing the same thing with Juwan Jennings, downplaying the severity of the injury just to basically make it seem like they're going to be better than they are. Which brings the next question of Christian's health. Christian is a very talented player. He's one of the best players in the league. But his injuries have piled up and they've been season ruiners for a lot of people. Unless you had his backup last year, you probably missed out on a lot of points and probably lost your league. So I want to avoid Christian McCaffrey at all costs. There's no reason to take this gamble with so much uncertainty around on a team who's injured, lacking identity, and really have no idea what they're going to look like. I'd just rather not deal with that headache and get somebody who's a little more reliable, who I can trust week in and week out. I'd rather go with somebody like Derrick Henry, who's more of a workhorse. Yeah, he's getting older, but he has not shown signs of slowing down to this point. I think he could be a more reliable situation than Christian McCaffrey is. Decision: avoiding in the first round. Next up is Alvin Kamara. The reason? Talent around him. I've always been on the Alvin Kamara train. Ever since he joined the league, I've always liked him as a running back and a fantasy prospect. Not only for his rushing ability, but he catches the ball and gets a lot of yak. So he's a fantasy darling in my eyes. The problem with him, though, is the talent around him. The Saints don't know who their quarterback is. They are having a battle between Spencer Rattler and Tyler Shaw, where I think Tyler is the better option over Spencer, but that's just me. But the problem is with any team who doesn't have their quarterback figured out, you don't know what to expect from that team. Are they going to be more run heavy? Are they going to be trying to be more pass heavy? That's a big question. We don't know what that is for the Saints right now. Alvin had his best season last year, closest to 1,000 rushing yards he's ever been in his career. But the problem with that is that the offensive coordinator who was in charge of that, Clint Kubiak, is now in Seattle, which brings me to my last point. The Saints aren't projected to be very good this year. They are projected to be possibly the team with the #1 overall pick, which means they're not going to be ahead in a lot of games, which means Alvin's main value is going to be catching the ball as a check down option. So unless you're playing PPR, the value is not there. Most people play PPR, some people play standard. I'm in a league with stupid scoring, so conversation for another day. The problem is that Alvin does not have value unless you're in a PPR system without knowing who the quarterback is. If you have a later draft like I do on Labor Day weekend, they may have their quarterback situation figured out by then. They probably will name a starter, so you will have a better idea. Where if it's Shaw, I have a better feeling about drafting Alvin. If it's Rattler, I'm not going to touch him with a 10-foot pole. He's around running back 17 right now, which there are safer options like Williams, James Cook. Since he just signed his contract, he may go up a little bit higher, but as of now, where his ADP is around Kamara's. There are safer options there, so it all just depends on who the quarterback is. Conclusion: avoiding if it's Rattler, drafting if he falls a round or two with Shuck as quarterback. This is a double whammy. The Rams wide receivers. Reason: quarterback injury and his age. I'm putting both Puka Nacua and Davante Adams at this spot because I don't love their quarterback situation this year. Matthew Stafford is getting older, and yeah, you can say that for every single player on here, but he's 37 years old with a back issue. He hasn't practiced in training camp yet. He is still injured and has not touched the field. That does not bode well for the Rams offense as a whole. Not to mention, this injury has a high chance of re-aggravating. So you're going to literally have a quarterback who's going into the season injured with a high probability of getting injured again. Now, the reason this is a problem is because the only person who can really spread the ball around the way he does is Matthew Stafford. He was able to feed Nacua. He was able to feed Kupp. He was able to feed multiple receivers year after year. The backup option in Los Angeles is Jimmy G. And we've seen that experiment before with Davante Adams and Jimmy Garoppolo, and it wasn't great. I don't have more faith in him because of Puka Nacua. I think it will be a similar situation where Jimmy G can't feed anybody. And even more reason the Stafford injury scares me is that they're hyping up Jimmy G, which usually means that he's going to be playing some time at some point. I'm not able to see anybody but Stafford being able to feed both those receivers to give you valuable fantasy points week in and week out. I think it's going to be more of a situation where one eats one week, one eats the other week. It's going to flip-flop back and forth like that unless it's Matthew Stafford. So the problem is that even though it's Matthew Stafford, I don't trust the injuries. He's racking them up, and it's such a huge risk for players that are going very high with very good ADP, with very good players around them. Conclusion: avoiding at all costs. Next up, Tyreek Hill. The reason? Weird vibes in Miami and QB injury history. Tyreek and the Dolphins just feel like they're in a really weird place. It doesn't feel like the hype is there. It doesn't feel like the vibes are there. Tyreek requested a trade at the end of last season because he wasn't playing in the playoffs. It's just very odd. Mike McDaniel coming out and saying that it's a good day because
we're another day closer to death.
Just very odd behavior all around. And it's not just the vibes that are throwing me off. It's the performance. Tyreek didn't really get very many fantasy points last year. He only got one deep ball, I think, week 1, and then after that, he didn't get a ball over 30 yards the rest of the season. Not to mention, Tua's concussion history is a scary thing. Their backup is Zach Wilson. I don't trust him just like I don't trust Jimmy G to be able to feed two receivers like Waddle and Hill. It's going to come down week to week, one over the other, and that's not something I want in my fantasy lineup every single week. I want to be able to plug and play certain guys. Drafting where you're drafting Tyreek, he should be a plug and play guy, and that's not going to be the situation if Tua is out. Tua is such a big injury risk that it's not worth taking Tyreek, in my opinion. It's just not something I want to be in the mix with. So my conclusion: avoid. Next up, Jaxon Smith-Njigba. Reason? Never been a true wide receiver one in the past, and his QB only has one good season under his belt. JSN is in a very familiar situation to somebody like Juju Smith-Schuster a few years ago. He went from a number 2/3 receiver into being that number 1 wide receiver. My fear with JSN is he's going to turn out exactly like Juju did. Juju's a talented receiver, don't get me wrong, but he was never able to fill that wide receiver 1 role. He was never able to really do it. He's a great 2 option, 3 option, sure, but as a wide receiver 1, he just wasn't able to compete. And I think that's going to be the same problem with JSN. Yeah, they brought Cooper Kupp in, but let's be honest with ourselves. He is not going to be that Triple Crown winner anymore. He can be all over the field. He can be slot, he can be Y, he can be X, he can be all of those things, but he's not going to be their true number wide receiver either. This is all falling on JSN. I love him as a player, but just not in this situation they're putting him in. And not to mention that Sam Darnold is now his quarterback. And Sam had a great year last year, but he's only had one great year in his entire career. He has been on multiple teams and not been able to perform like he did in Minnesota. Is that a question of, was the Minnesota Vikings the right system for him, or did Sam Darnold learn enough in all of his experiences with these other teams to develop? I believe it's more of the former. I think the Viking system worked very well for him, and not that Seattle won't, try to do the same thing for him. I just don't see him resurging like that. I just don't see it, especially with getting rid of players like DK Metcalf. Like, DK's a big body, somebody that can literally get the ball wherever you throw it. He's not a great fantasy wide receiver. He's a great real world receiver. So losing him is going to be huge. And not to mention, Sam Darnold had Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison last year. Those are 2 stud receivers that are going to make your job a hell of a lot easier. You don't have that going to Seattle. Sorry, JSN and Cooper Kupp, you don't compare to Justin Jefferson. If you're able to, snag somebody like T. Higgins, who's kind of close in range, maybe you pay up for him a little bit, I'd be more comfortable with somebody like T. Higgins over JSN. Yeah, T. Higgins is a wide receiver too, but he is a proven wide receiver too who gets fed by Joe Burrow. We have no idea what's going to happen in Seattle this year. So my conclusion, avoid. Next up is Jerry Jeudy. The reason? QB uncertainty and not a lot of other options. Jerry Jeudy is the best playmaker on Cleveland. But that's the problem. It's Cleveland. They don't have a handle on their QB1 situation. They're saying it's going to be Joe Flacco to start, but fans are clamoring for Cleveland is completely a mess right now, especially in that quarterback room. The other issue is that he's the best wide receiver on that team by a mile. Teams are going to cover him. They're going to double cover him because they know that there's not really any other option. It is being reported by the player himself that Isaiah Bond is going to be signing with the Cleveland Browns. And if that's the case, that's a huge signing. This is not me speaking on him as a person because, again, he's accused of things. He was found not to be charged, so that's where we're going to leave that. But his talent is incredible. He could have been a 2nd or 1st round pick if it was just based on talent alone. But the problem is with all these legal issues, nobody wanted to touch him. So him coming to the Brown situation is a good thing, but we have no idea what this kid's going to look like. We haven't had rookie camp. We haven't had, the preseason. We haven't had anything. He is going to be fresh and has to catch up to everybody else. Not to say that he couldn't, but I think it's going to take a few weeks before it even becomes something viable. This means all the pressure is going to be on Jeudy, meaning everyone's going to cover Jeudy, and it's just, I don't like the situation. I really don't. If Flacco remains the quarterback, I don't hate it. I think they'll still be able to feed him, but if it's somebody like Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders, I don't know how that's going to look. Especially with a team like the Browns, it's going to be hard to justify the pick. So my conclusion on Jerry Jeudy, avoid. And that's just my list. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Are there players that you're completely avoiding? Are there players that I miss? Are there people I'm overreacting to? Let me know down in the comments down below. Make sure you leave a like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. Share this video with everyone you know. Let's help grow a community here and grow this channel. And until the next one, have a good one.